This is Beyond the Big Screen podcast with your host, Steve Guerra.
I think everybody must know this sort of person, and I'm sure you must have run into them in your career where it's just a person who's not necessarily a bad person, and they might even have some really good qualities. They just are not capable of making a good choice.
Yeah, I knew a number of people who I would, chase in a car, chase on foot, have to fight with occasionally, arrest on warrants, arrest for possession or for assault or whatever. And yet there would be other times, we would call them, a lot of places use the term frequent flyer, for somebody that's a, habitual criminal or a career criminal, somebody that you come in contact with frequently. But then there'd be other times where I'd show up at, say, another call or a party call or at an apartment or something, apartment complex where, they're at the apartment next door to whatever I'm getting called for, just sitting out there having a cigarette on the porch or whatever, not doing anything. And so you encounter them in that scenario, and they're personable, they're funny, they're not they're not snarky. They're just a decent person. And so you have this completely different exchange. And it's kind of weird if you think about it, because you're having this nice conversation with somebody. Maybe, they're talk about a movie or an event that has sporting event or something, and you're just a couple of guys, couple of people chatting, while one of them's working and one of them's hanging out, and then, 2 days later, you might be driving 65 miles an hour down a back road with your lights on, chasing them in a stolen car, and then, after you arrest them and take them to jail, while you're standing in jail waiting to book them, it might be the same thing as it was when they were sitting on the porch there. Everything's chill. It's just a weird thing for these relationships that can sometimes happen. And don't get me wrong, there are people out there that are just a absolute jerk 100% of the time. And I'm sure there are cops that are absolute hard asses 100% of the time. So not everybody has this sort of relationships, and you don't have them with everybody out there either. But there are a lot of the Walker's the name of the character that Max played. There are a number of Walkers out there that I encountered, and it's just a strange dynamic, because you like the guy, right? You don't want to have to arrest him, but you just stopped him in a stolen car and he's got an ounce of heroin on him and he's got a felony warrant. It's not like you could just give him a break or something, so you don't exactly feel bad for him, but you feel bad that you had to do it. I don't know if I'm explaining this very well or not, but it's a very strange sort of situation. And that's how I felt watching this movie way back in 91, 92 when I first saw it. And I still felt that way when I watched it a few nights ago.
Yeah, I think that type of person, you can see that they're not an absolute reprobate. They're not like bad to the core, where I'm sure you saw, and plenty too, where somebody was just absolutely no good, where this guy, again, he was, not Jekyll and Hyde. He was just a goofball who wound up in the wrong things, probably didn't have the greatest impulse control, and you can kind of feel bad for that. And like you said, as an officer, yeah, you have to arrest him when he's got a pound full of heroin in the car, but maybe you cuff him in the back of the head. What were you thinking, Walker? You're not going to play the hard guy with him. Where I'm, like you said, I'm sure there probably were people who were very black and white, but I think with someone like him, there's a whole lot of gray in there.
See, in the movie, Jennifer Jason Leigh's character, Kristen, she likes Walker, legitimately likes him, and tries to help him on a couple of occasions. And I think Rayner, I don't know how much he likes him. It's not as apparent, but Kristen, there's a couple, 3 different scenes I can think of off the top of my head where it's apparent that she has affection for him, and not of the romantic kind, but just of the, very basic human affection. And so, yeah, the guy plays the role just so well. And that is a kind of criminal, I mean, his values are what they are. He grew up in a culture where, you get a job and you work all day, and then you take some of that money and you buy booze and dope and have a good time on the weekend. And that's life. That's what life is. And that's how he grew up. And that's what everybody else around him was doing. And so he's not evil. He's not even maybe bad. He's just making bad decisions based on the culture that he's a part of. And he's probably not even thinking very hard about it. And so it's kind of hard to condemn that person past a certain point. But, at the same time, he's stealing cars and selling drugs. So, I mean, there is that.
Yeah.
I mean, there are other characters that are a little more scary. I mean, they buy heroin from a guy that puts a gun on them and makes them both shoot up to prove they're not cops. That guy's pretty scary. There's a guy selling pills, the blue ringers, that guy in the overalls that, he's pretty menacing, and you think he might actually sexually assault her, and then he stops short of it. I wouldn't feel bad about either one of those people going to jail for what they did. I had no sympathy whatsoever. But Walker, hey, it's not a bad guy. He's just making bad choices.